So we move on to the panel, and the bar has now been set very high as to what kind of reflections we would need to continue with. We have a panel of 3 people representing different stakeholders coming from outside education. So we're going to get a little bit of different perspectives here. And I'm first going to do a round of introductions, and always after the introduction, I'm going to ask the colleagues why question, that why creativity. And you will have the challenge of now finding something beyond what we already heard, and that will be difficult, I know. Let's start with Kraiyos Patrawart, Managing Director at the Equitable Education Fund. Kraiyos is Managing Director in Thailand at Equitable Education Fund, an independently managed public fund for equitable education and human development. Annually, this organization supports an amazing number of students. It gives conditional cash transfers to over 1.3 million compulsory school-age children from underprivileged households across Thailand to prevent dropout and provide scholarship for thousands of resilient students through college and vocational degrees. EEF also develops innovative research and technology that lead to solutions for equitable education and human development in Thailand at local and national levels. And actually, I think at CERI, at OECD, we have collaborated in many different projects with EEF over the years. What do you find? You have many programs that are related to creativity and critical thinking in education. Why do you think the creativity is an important skill for young people in Thailand and across the world?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for inviting me. Basically, the students who we are currently support, over 1 million of them, they are the poorest one and the most disadvantaged one in our population group. And you can't expect to provide them a typical Victorian-style education of memorizing facts or the 20th century education to make sure to help them escape poverty trap or leave an intergenerational poverty, which is our ultimate goal, to provide them equitable education, a quality one, to make sure in their generation they can leave poverty trap, and then Thailand can leave the middle income trap, which we are currently in with many of the countries. So creativity is one of the very important and critical skill, apart from other kind of skill that we need to really provide to the most vulnerable student. And the fact in Thailand education system, I think similar to other education system across the world, that the most remote school, the poorest school, poorest student and teacher, they are the last one who receive the new textbook, the last one who receive the new gadgets for smart classroom, so on and so forth. So talking about creativity, critical thinking, or other 21st century skill, they are probably the last one of the group of students or population who receive this kind of tools for them to navigate their future and prepare themselves for the future of jobs. So creativity is at our heart, to make sure that we not only provide cash transfer, a conditional one, we provide them the skill set, the character building, the tools for them to really navigate themselves from their village, from their neighborhood, and one day become a contributing citizens of Thailand. So this just one of the key reasons why we work with the OECD. By the time, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, when we realized that the OECD will develop this kind of a creativity and critical thinking tool, we think that we will bring it to the most remote area of Thailand, bring it to the most vulnerable group of population, and to see if that makes a real difference. And it does. And I can share you with a later result later on in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. So you link it to the citizenship skills like the minister previously. Our second panelist is Alix Dufour, art and Creativity Global Brand Manager at BIC. And here I don't know if you know the company of BIC, and now I realize I have the right, my pen is not the right brand at the moment, but I'll fix that one. So Alix is in charge of the creating platforms for BIC to support human creativity by empowering and enabling the world's creators to express themselves. And you also are a granddaughter of the founder of BIC, so I think the creativity probably comes from the family already. So can you tell us a little bit more why creativity is so important for BIC?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tia, and thank you for having me. I think the main reason why creativity is so important to BIC starts with the product that we have. That pen that was released to the world in 1950, and that became a partner for the expression of creativity. So it's the continuation of the hand, right? It's an enabler of creativity. It's what allows people to express themselves, to write stories, and to draw. And we like to think that we participated in some way in the democratization of writing and of human expression, more generally speaking. We have a product that's accessible and affordable because of its price by any people from any generation, any country, and any social background. And that's very powerful, this universalism of the product. So I would say that at first, the first building block of this story and this link to creativity is really the mission of the writing tool that we have released. I think it's also important to say that it shows that creativity sits within us all, and we've really realized that this writing tool was just an enabler for what we already have inside. So that's the first reason why we're into creativity. Then, as time passed, we have observed, we've become witnesses of the uses and the power that the tool that we had released was having on people. First of all, on creators around the world. It took us some time to realize that people were actually using the pen not only to write, but also to express themselves in many different ways, including creating art. So we also have some commitments to helping those artists develop themselves, and that's where I'm sitting in the company. And then the second realization was that this pen was also a crucial instrument in schools and in education. And that led us to set up the BIC Foundation for Education, which was set up in 2016 and which has a commitment in driving access to quality education for underserved youth in communities that we operate in, with a special focus since 2021 on developing those creative skills within education. So that's the second realization that we had. And then finally, I think the reason why we're all here is that we realize that creativity in education is so crucial to develop people who are able to participate to the fullest of their capacities to the workforce and to the economies. And so as a business, we are looking for those creative skills within people. And we're also looking for people who have these creative skills, but we're also looking to develop them within our own workforce. Because we have this community of a bit less than 16,000 people around the world, which we have to invest in. So those same qualities that we are trying to develop in the youth, in those education programs that we fund, we also continue the story and have the same engagement towards our employees, because we realize that creativity is what's going to help us while be able to be resilient, be able to find innovative solutions in the face of challenges that are lying ahead. So I think that quite sums up the reasons why BIC has to be engaged and is historically engaged in creativity, and we'll come back to what we actually do later on.
Thank you. You really made me look at the pen differently as a tool for creativity, but it is true that we probably take it kind of for granted quite often that, okay, I mean, in our lifetime at least, we've always had a pen. So, Vlad Glăvenu, from Dublin City University, Ireland, and the University of Bergen in Norway. You are a full... I still have some notes that I need to go through to introduce you so that people have a context. So you're a full professor of psychology in the School of Psychology in Dublin City University, and also a professor at the Center for Science of Learning and Technology at the University of Bergen. And you are a founder and president of the Possibility Studies Network. And your focus, the work has focused on the creativity, imagination, culture, collaboration, wonder, possibility, and societal challenges. So why do we need creativity?
Now is the moment. Excellent. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. It's kind of hard to follow the excellent keynote we had this morning, so I was trying to think what else can we add to those points. But I mean, there are so many reasons. When I think about myself, I'm a bit of an atypical psychologist coming to the topic of creativity. A lot of my colleagues study learning, cognition, and I'm a social psychologist. So for me, it's always been very important to understand the interdependence between mind and culture. And in that way, we can look at creativity as an engine of human development. We can look at it as an engine of cultural and societal evolution. And one of my great interests in research and in teaching about creativity is to understand the ecology of creativity. And I really appreciated all these references to society, institutions, to the pen, materiality, which is part of a wider research agenda, I think, within possibility studies and creativity research. I mean, the Minister of Education said it very, very wonderfully that, creativity makes us human in many ways. Engagement with the possible, the fact that we not only envision but play with possibilities. We are constrained and we don't always get to choose what we want to choose, but at the same time we have to think of an ethics of possibility, especially in the world of today. The fact that we can create so many things raises the question, should we create all these things and how should we use them? So I think an agenda of critical thinking, creativity, wisdom coming together is very important. And just briefly from a psychological perspective, there is kind of accumulating evidence that creativity has a lot of benefits. Of course, being creative can also be sometimes stressful or frustrating. It's not always easy, producing creative work, but we do know that it contributes greatly to human development. It helps learning. Pretend play, again, is one of these big drivers of social and cognitive development. It also contributes to mental health, despite this big myth that creators have to be a little bit mad, as it were. Actually, when you think about mental flexibility and the possibility of envisioning multiple perspectives and just self-expression, it's a huge driver of mental health and well-being. Societal progress, we've been hearing, and I'm sure we'll be hearing much more on that and addressing societal challenges. And in the world of today, in relation to technology, some of my colleagues talk about human dignity, really, in the way we distinguish ourselves, perhaps, and collaborate, not only distinguish ourselves, but collaborate with technology. And one point that is very important to me has to do with what's been said before about tolerance and inclusion. I am of the view, maybe a hopeful view, that actually when we cultivate creativity, we do much more than just foster creative thinking. We cultivate a form of open-mindedness that helps people relate to each other, understand diversity and connections in a different way. So hopefully a positive agenda for the future.
Yes, what you said in the beginning, that when we cultivate creativity, we cultivate other skills. And I can say that from our work at OECD, where we've worked on the social emotional skills that the minister also referred to, we can see clear correlation between the 10, 15-year-olds who identify themselves as being more creative. They are also stronger in many of the other skills that we try to nurture in education systems. So we see a positive correlation. Now we've kind of covered why. Let's go to the what and how you are addressing creativity in your work. And what is the primary aim of that work, and what are the challenges, perhaps? But also, I would go back to what Kraiyos was saying, that what are the results that you may have had in your work? Maybe we'll go this time in the same order than we did, so we'll start with you.
Thank you. Basically, we in the past 5 years that we start collaborating with CERI and in this creativity and critical thinking program, we have been working with over 1,000 of schools, 10,000 of teachers, and over 100,000 of students across Thailand. We apply the concept and the tools, the rubrics, and all the stuff that we have developed together as a team to contextualize it into Thai context and start developing teacher training program, developing a curriculum at the school level, and also develop a lot of projects with them that the school can work together to develop these tools in the science, in math, and in literacy subjects in school. And at the same time, we try to develop the entrepreneurial skill with this kind of product innovation. We found that when we bring kids to work together as a program, as a project-based learning, and let them develop the product and sales online, e-commerce, it also not only develop their creativity skill, but also let them engage with the market. And with this current climate of the social network and this e-commerce, they can find themselves a marketplace, an opportunity for them to earn a living. It's like try to connect them with what they are learning at the school today and their future of how they can move out from poverty. So that's one of the reasons why we try to connect inequality with creativity. So hopefully next time when Bill develop the competition apart from the climate change, maybe creativity and equitable education could be one of the award as well, because it's important, particularly the country like Thailand. We are upper middle income country and aging society, and ultra aging society. We are shrinking in terms of population. We can't afford any student dropping out from school, and for those who can leave the poverty through this 21st century skill, they really need to acquire those set of skills in an innovative way. And after the first 3 or 5 years, we are now also try to connect to the Ministry of Education, because at the beginning, we do it as a pilot program, not a scale nationwide program. It's a better way to engage the ministry. The last thing you want to do is to ask the ministry to do it nationwide before anything is ready. And so we are at the moment in the process of communicating with the new government and a new ministry. In Thailand, we are developing a competency-based curriculum at the moment. So hopefully we can connect all those work we have been working together and having about 1,000 schools that work very well as a good example. And when the opportunity comes for the reform of the curriculum, competency-based curriculum, all the jigsaw will put together, and we can make a real scalable policy change in the near future. And we'll keep you guys posted. Thank you.
Thank you. It is very lovely to hear that indeed the rubrics and the different tools we have been developing through our projects are really being used and helpful. And I like to comment about making the link between creativity and equitable education and equitable society, because I think that frames really well why we at OECD are working on this as well, and we will take that for our next reports. So Alix, you promised to talk about what PIC does in terms of promoting creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the first thing that we do is, as I tried to explain before, is producing those pens. So it's having, making those durable, high quality pens, well, writing instruments, that we can, that are in themselves some kind of pieces of great design and great art. And actually, the big crystal pen, which was the first pen, is exhibited in the MoMA in New York and in the Centre Pompidou in Paris, going to show the great impact that those the product had in the last century on self-expression. So in a way, we're breeding creativity in that way, but that's quite conceptual. Because then so as I explained, we witnessed how the pen was used, kind of, you know, you put something out in the wild, and then you observe the results, and you see, wow, there are some great people, architects, designers, creators that have made art and that have created with our medium. What do we do with it? So one of the commitments that we made to support those creators was that we set up an art collection at the beginning of about 20 years ago. Basically, we set up to buy some art from those people who across the world had seized the product to really transcend it, basically. It's not a writing tool anymore. It's really a medium of creation. So we have, for example, lamps that have been made with the pens, obviously stories that are written, but also drawings and so on. So this art collection was the first step, let's say, in supporting emerging artists. Then the second example is the contest that we're running in Africa and the Middle East, which is called the Big Art Masters Africa. So every year since 2018, we open up a region-wide contest to all the creators who are using the ballpoint pen to create. And so we give out cash prizes, and we help them set up we help the winners set up some of their running and operational costs. And we've had, the past year only, more than 6,000 submissions from about 3,500 creators. So that's really interesting, because we see that there's this enthusiasm there. Another example is a social account that we have created, which is called big.create on Instagram, and it's a community of big and art enthusiasts that come together, and we post their works on social media, and we really are making efforts to be able to give them a platform to have greater visibility. So that's the commitment that we have for emerging artists. And then in terms of realizing the great impact that this writing instrument had on education, as I said, we have set up the Big Foundation for Education, and we support the development and basically the agenda of development of creative skills within education. So we are funding some projects. As of the end of last year, we had helped develop 51 projects across the world by deploying more than 3 million euros. And one example of the projects that we support is Montmartre, which is a French foundation which offers a very innovative after-school curriculum for people to really develop themselves, young people to develop themselves through art. Another one that we have in the US is Girls Right Now, which is a mentoring circle for young women to be educated to public speaking and media and be able to learn from their peers. So we're very, very happy that we've been able to develop these. And then the last thing is breeding this creativity amongst our employees. And so it's a very collaborative environment. We make sure well, some people across the organization have set up some ways that everyone within the business, in whatever corner they are of the organization, can pitch in ideas, contribute, try to solve challenges, and really bring something to the table in a very open manner. The employees themselves are really creative as well, and we really try and encourage this. We have regular creative coffee chats, for example, where they can, meet with someone who's using creativity as a force for good, using creativity for social change. So we're really trying to foster those exchanges as well, so that we make sure that people's creativity is really emphasized and really honored, which is important. But those are some of the many examples.
I really like the last part about promoting creativity also within the organization, and I'm actually now wondering if we should, rather than just having a project where we talk about creativity in education, if we should think about that in our context within the OECD Secretariat as well. You're giving me ideas for my long to-do list. But Vlad, how does creativity come across in your work?
So my research career started from a more unlikely place of studying creativity. So my doctoral project some years ago was about craft and creativity, in particular Easter egg decoration practices. I know this is not the season to talk much about Easter, but I'm originally from Romania, and my interest from early on was in everyday life creativity, community forms of creativity, collective creativity. So the things that we consider not connected as much with creativity, or even the enemies of creative expression, like tradition, repetition, habits, the body in some ways. We talk a lot about the mind and ideas, and I wanted to see what kind of place they have in creative work, and they have a massive place. But of late, I'm working with many colleagues, and including with now the Global Institute of Creative Thinking, hopefully, on developing and thinking about all sorts of possibility spaces, let's call them. And it's this idea of tailoring and making, culturally and contextually sensitive interventions that are very collaborative with local schools, but also beyond the schools with local communities in trying to foster creative thinking. Now, there are many challenges to that. We're talking about challenges as well. And in my own work and in research in general, there is the challenge of how to approach things holistically. When you try to understand the whole system, systems are very complex, of course, famously, and also to look at the system as it evolves and moves forward and transforms. I think in scientific research, we often have a bit of a blind spot for understanding processes and guiding them as they move forward. We often tend to stabilize reality in order to understand it better or study it, and then that would be a big research challenge. But with these spaces, what we're trying to do also is to understand the role of technology. And I feel like I'm coming full circle from Easter eggs to VR and AI, because there are, like the pen, they're tools. Creativity is tool mediated. Whatever we do, whatever ideas we have, we depend on this material, social, cultural world to enact it. So one of the latest research projects we have as a group has to do with understanding how AI, for instance, contributes to human creativity. There's a big question nowadays, will AI replace creativity? And the answer is no. At least I'm going to say no, because generative AI doesn't mean creative AI. To generate doesn't mean to create. But of course, there are many connections. And just as the pen changes the way we think and work, obviously generative AI will do as well. So a lot of work is around kind of using user innovation with young people and understanding how they give value and meaning to objects and technologies. So it's a deep connection with what was just mentioned in terms of looking at, especially young people, as agents of creativity and possibility, and not just setting an agenda for them, but co-constructing the agenda with them.
Can I go a little bit off the script? In the introduction, it also read that you work on wonder and possibility. Do you see a link between those? Well, how do you understand them, and do you see a link between those and creativity?
Oh, thank you for that question. I'm going to try to be brief because I'm always excited talking about wonder, but they're all part of a bigger ecosystem, right? In possibility studies, we basically bring together creativity work with imagination, serendipity, wonder, awe, curiosity, counterfactuals, anticipation, utopias, dystopias, and I can go on. But the wonder part, I think, is very interesting, especially from an educational perspective. There is this big accusation very often that we keep hearing that schools kill creativity. And again, I'm not of that view. I mean, there's a lot of evidence showing they don't, but schools are places of creative production. There's always something being made in schools. Of course, the degree of originality or the support offered can vary, but schools always create. Learning is intrinsically creative, as we know. But wonder is a different category. To wonder means to not know and to appreciate that state as generative. And I think what very often educational systems do is they exclude or marginalize not knowing. Then they actually stigmatize not knowing. Very often in schools, and at least in my education, but even continuing today, failure, not knowing, not getting the right answer is a bit shameful. And I think part of the story of creativity and possibility is exactly exploiting those spaces and just dwelling within the space of not knowing. You know, teachers and students together, having a partnership rather than this unidirectional connection between the one who knows and the one who should get to know. So I think a wonderful, yes, education would definitely create this space for emergence, for genuine emergence, you know, asking in class unknown questions that the teacher doesn't know the answer to. It makes you very vulnerable, but it's certainly so much more rewarding. Yeah.
I love the wonderful education. So yes, let's go to education a little bit. So you are all here because you represent a stakeholder that is not really necessarily in school right now, really hands-on as educator, but you look at it from the outside. If you had to give some messages to educators on creativity, its importance and how to promote it, and perhaps also how your stakeholder, whether you're an employer or a researcher, could contribute to promoting creativity in a wonderful education. What would be your kind of key messages? Let's start with Kraiyos.
Right. I think I can draw it from my direct experience when trying to bring, when mentioned about OECD to Thai school, they kind of frightened a bit. They connect that with the PISA, and you know that they kind of scared that we are bringing something that totally new and totally difficult for them to start with. So that is the first step for them to embrace the change, embrace the new ideas, new tools, and try to break the barrier of teacher in Thailand. I guess in many countries they have a lot of paperwork to begin with, to do all the form, to do all the clerks kind of jobs, and teaching in the classroom have become kind of low priority in many times and occasions. So when we bring these creativity tools to them, we try to convince them that this is the future of your student and the future of your career too, and try to be brave in try this new thing, and we will be with you throughout the journey. So that's my main message. And the second message is that being a teacher who just transfer the facts, transfer information to the student all the time is no longer work in our current situation. Try to be able to provide them with something that they can grow later on. The skill set that they will be able to find job, particularly those resilient students, the students who are from the poor background, but they have high potential to become someone in the future. Try to use creativity as a tool to unlock that potential. And I do challenge the OECD that creativity is the one thing that you can connect with other things. It's like when you talked about SDG 4, it connects with all the other SDG to help you achieve the whole sustainable development. When you have more kids from the poor background from the remote area, joining your community, joining your citizenship, politics can become better, more balanced in terms of representation. Business can become more creative because you have new ideas, new narrative to develop new products. So all this, the main message to the teacher is that if you start to walk along this road, there will be amazing things lies ahead, and the thing that keep you awake to go to school, as I experienced with my teacher, is just to, before they go to sleep, they can imagine that their kids will be all right. They won't stuck in this village. They will be, going somewhere, become some famous people, and to know that creativity is something you can make a real difference. I think is amazing, and equitable society, social mobility can benefit from creativity in education.
Is it a difficult message to get through to the teachers, or is it rather easy to convince?
It's definitely not one hour message. I have to eat with them, have lunch with them, bring them to my office for a conference like this, and bring your colleagues to Thailand. Many of you have been to Thailand to really make a real difference. It's a package of experience that we need to deliver to the teacher. We need to do something different. We can't do things like a mass workshop, like we call thousands of teachers sit in one full day workshop and hopefully they're gonna change their mindset. Definitely not. And as I mentioned, that we do it at a small scale, at only 1,000 schools over the past 5 years. So we strike at the right balance to make sure they can change their mindset and be part of our changing society.
Alix, as an employer, what would you say to education systems?
So it's quite hard from my place to actually give advice to any educator. But there are a few things I think I can comment on. One finding that I did recently was that actually I realized that a lot of creative people had been kind of failed in some way by the traditional education systems. So I would say maybe it's great to be able to develop creative skills amongst everyone, but it's also very important to really make sure that the most creative people of all of us are actually included and taken care of in a way, because we really need them as well. And I guess the work that we're doing, and I'm doing with BIC, helping some creators, is trying to build bridges with them, because we also need them in the collective thinking. If we want to solve challenges I mean, we live in a very fractured world. We need to be able to write a new shared story, to craft that story, but also to tell it. So we need everyone. So I would say that the message I want to get across is really be able to include everyone in the system. And then the second thing I think is community. I think also building bridges amongst professionals, amongst educators, businesses is probably very important, because at the end of the day, the youth that we form and that we invest in is also the future workforce. So it's important to make sure that we're aligned. And that's also why BIC has created this creative community of practice, where it's a mix of people exchanging resources, best practices, and so on. And I think companies nowadays have a dual mandate. They really have to be able to deliver economic growth, but they also have to be able to cater for and invest in the communities that they're in. So relying on those businesses as well, bringing them in, doing the work with them is interesting. I think small building block to building future generations and solving those problems that we're all facing is investing in people. So I think, yeah, bringing people together, making sure that we learn from each other is very important.
It's like you're reiterating some of our visions for the future schools, where we see that schools would be much more part of the community and working together with different actors in society, including employers and so on. So that would be another way to promote creativity. Everyone in this room and also in Zoom, I'm just going to give Vlad an opportunity to answer my question, and then the floor is yours to ask questions. So please think of some. Thank you. Now, Vlad.
I'll be brief. I think academia sometimes gets a bit of a bad press, thinking about the ivory tower of academia, but it shouldn't be like this, and it's not like this in many, many instances. There's a big, deep partnership between universities and schools. I mean, let's not forget that universities are a place of education, and I'm a teacher myself. But I think one of the things that strikes me in working with teachers is, you know, one of these messages of wonderful education and the world of uncertainty, volatility, and risk we're navigating. We're trying to help teachers and students consider these uncertainties as a resource, perhaps. But that is challenging. You know, there is a balance. Too much uncertainty, too much risk can throw, you know, the whole process up. So I think one of the things is working within the educational system with the constraints that exist, and not expecting that necessarily a revolution will happen in every school at every moment. You know, these small steps, but important, significant steps for me in my own research in working with teachers are so important. Asking questions a bit differently. It might seem like a very, very tiny thing to do, or having teachers really be partners in a dialogue with students. You know, the way the climates and cultures of creativity are built, they're built through tiny little things. And indeed, we need time and we need effort, and it doesn't come easy, but there is hope in that process, as long as we understand the whole ecosystem, as my panelist said. Yeah.
Thank you. Now the floor would be yours in the audience. Any questions? In the back, Andre.
Thank you very much. This has been really a very inspiring morning. I have a question about, thank you, about the teachers and the classroom, because what you're describing is a classroom that would require a non-hierarchical approach to knowledge. And I was wondering, for those cultures that are very hierarchical, how do you overcome this issue?
We start from identify the school that are ready to challenge the status quo, the school that have school principal who have give autonomy to the teacher, and the school culture that the teacher themselves want to try some new things. I think we first identify those schools and invite them to our workshop, whether they would like to work on this program for several years. And when we found that kind of group of people, we then let them become the coach for the second round of the school. And then EEF will kind of step aside a bit, because we develop a coach for the school. And when school principals say themselves that this is a good thing to do, and it's also matched to exactly what we need to do for the student, and try to find way to navigate those paperwork and those hierarchical process in the school to overcome those challenges and make the real thing that students come to school for. And that's our unique technique try to do in Thailand. Thank you.
Do you want to say something as a university teacher?
That's a fantastic question, and thank you for that. I think hierarchies, I mean, they come in different shapes and forms, don't they? And there are elements that, you see me, I'm advocating sometimes this idea of baby steps or incremental change. And because I worked on craft, I realized the value of working with and not only against tradition, and trying to meet things halfway somehow. So I think there are hierarchies, of course, that you know, impose a way of working and some kind of respectfulness in dealing with others. And then there are hierarchies of knowledge and status, and those are the more difficult ones ones when it comes to the creative process because they don't allow full participation. But I think one can work within that system and try to change it from within as well. And I appreciate the idea that we need to find the right partners in different places and maybe work progressively in that sense.
Alexandra?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm training teachers but also students to learn how to do computational thinking and programming. And if you're in a classroom where that happens, invariably, you know, the chance of some kind of programming project producing a bug is basically 100%. Right, so what I haven't heard you talk all that much is how do you deal in terms of creativity of dealing with failure, right? Because that's something that is going to happen in the process of being creative. And I see sometimes attitudes, even with teachers, you know, where they just have an attitude of giving up. You know, if you go and Google a certain question, and if you don't find the answer in the first 5 lines, it's, well, we didn't find it and we give up. And if that's the attitude, how we educate our next generation of students, that's going to be a disaster. How do you support that?
That's a challenging question, whether it's in education or beyond education as well. So I know we're starting to run out of time. We have time to answer this properly, and I would appreciate if all of you could answer. How do you deal with the failure?
I think one of the first questions I asked Stefan is that it will be a formative test, formative assessment. So it's a low stake. It's not connecting to any examination or anything. So the tools that they've developed promote creativity is a formative assessment tool that doesn't link to any high stake failure. So the failure is welcome. It's like a developmental evaluation kind of thing. So if you can keep it as it is, it will invite failure as a learning process, and the teacher themselves won't feel like it will impact their work. If it connects to the score or the standardized test, then they will look at things differently. So that's how we positioning this program in Thailand.
Alix.
I think I would have to give it more thought to actually find a solution. But at least in a business setting, what we're really encouraged to do is fail fast. And we're allowed to fail. So we're allowed to fail, we're allowed to iterate as well. And understanding that the fastest we fail, and we realize that we're not going for the right answer, is the fastest we're going to be able to actually find the answer. So maybe food for thought.
That's fascinating, failing fast. So Vlad.
Yeah, I mean, we also adopt some of these methodologies of fast failure. They're actually quite known in education as well, foregrounding that. But for me, it's also important to understand the whole atmosphere in which we build these exercises. So for me, it's important to have this atmosphere of playfulness and humor whenever possible, and trust and mutual trust. And I think that goes to the heart of allowing people to take more risks. How do you build that atmosphere? It's a bit hard. You know, you can't expect it to happen automatically. But it goes a long way with exactly what we said about authentic dialogues, vulnerability, and just this common curiosity and wonder about things that just brings people together. So yeah, the cultures of playfulness.
Thank you to all panelists for answering the tough questions.